When it comes to positions that Purdue football excels at, I'm sure you've heard of the cradle of quarterbacks and the den of defensive ends. But what about another one? The workshop of wide receivers, or warehouse of wide receivers? I don't know, it's kind of hard to come up with catchy wordplay that starts with a W. But anyway, Purdue has had some pretty good wide receiver talents over the years. But very few are more popular than Rondale Moore. At 5'7" and 165 pounds coming out of high school, it's not surprising to say that Rondale was considered undersized, even though he was the #1 ranked recruit in Kentucky. He had several offers from major SEC and Big Ten programs, but Rondale Moore chose Purdue, a team who in 2017 had their first winning season since 2011. For those of you who aren't familiar with how things in college football work, especially at programs who aren't getting 5-star recruits, freshmen rarely play. It is extremely hard to even sniff the field as a true freshman. With that being said, Rondale Moore was a superstar in his freshman year at Purdue. In his very first game against Northwestern, Rondale led the team in rushing yards, receiving yards, and to top it all off, he had 125 kick return yards in his very first college game. But the best game of Rondale's whole career came in the iconic Tyler Trent game. 170 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and tack on 24 yards rushing, upsetting number 2 Ohio State. Rondale ended the year with 1,258 receiving yards and 12 receiving touchdowns. But the numbers get even more impressive when you add the rushing and return yards. When you add the rushing and return yards, Rondale had 2,215 yards and 14 touchdowns. Rondale ended the year leading the nation in receptions and leading the Big Ten in receiving touchdowns and receiving yards. He was a consensus All-American and was named the most versatile player in college football. Purdue would go 6-7, making a bowl game, but getting absolutely killed by Auburn. So now it was on to 2019. Rondale averaged 96 receiving yards per game, half a touchdown, and 7 receptions per game. This is a 1,160-yard, 6 touchdown, and 87 reception pace over 12 games. Unfortunately, Rondale got hurt 4 games into the year against Minnesota, so he had 387 yards, 29 receptions, and 2 touchdowns in the 4 games that he played. These are good numbers, but it was still seen as a big step back from 2018. Especially with Purdue going 4-8 that year. Then came 2020, a year that was a fever dream, and college football was no different. Purdue only played 6 games the whole year, and Rondale missed 3 of them. He initially opted out of the season because of his concerns with COVID, but then came back for his final 3 games of the year. He scored 1 touchdown rushing, 302 yards from scrimmage, and 41 total touches. Again, once you average out those numbers and put them over a 12-game season, the numbers look good. 163 total touches, 1,207 yards, and 4 touchdowns. If Rondale stayed at Purdue, he could have had a massive 4th year. But instead, he declared for the draft, where, like in college, Rondale has had amazing flashes of skill, but has had trouble staying on the field. He's been solid in the NFL with 1,200 yards in 39 games across his whole career. And in 2022, he looked like he could have a breakout year with 414 yards and a touchdown in 8 games. But he got hurt, so he couldn't play out the rest of the year. Last year, Rondale even got more involved in the rushing game, having 178 rushing yards with a touchdown. And then this offseason, he was traded to the Falcons. And it's possible that Rondale could take that next big step in his NFL career. But during practice on August 10th, he suffered a season-ending knee injury, once again leaving us with a what-if scenario. Rondale is still just 24 years old, and probably has a lot left in the tank. As long as the Falcons or another team are willing to give him a shot next year, he could be very good. And that's why I titled this video the way that I did. Rondale Moore has shown crazy amounts of potential with his athleticism and versatility. Even as a smaller guy, he has the capability to be a playmaker anywhere you put him. He is just another weapon in the holster of any offensive coordinator he plays for, and that's something that a lot of offensive coordinators wish they had. but he just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to injuries. The same thing goes for his time at Purdue. If Rondale played a full season in his last 2 years, he would have 3,499 receiving yards, putting him third all-time. If he played in a bowl game both those years, he would be number 1 all-time in receiving yards. And that's just over 3 years. But it's not all bad. That 2018 year will be remembered for a long time. It's the kind of year that parents and grandparents tell stories to their kids about. Even though Rondale Moore never won a bowl game and only played 1 full season at Purdue, he has basically immortalized himself in West Lafayette. And at the end of the day, that is a huge accomplishment. To me, Rondale Moore represents everything that's special about college football. The really small, undersized, speedy, shifty wide receivers and running backs that we love watching just make dudes miss and make big plays on special teams and in the backfield and as a receiver in the slot or at X or whatever. Just that type of guy that's so versatile that he can play running back, he can play receiver. You know, that Tavon Austin type dude. I know this is the second time that I've mentioned Tavon Austin, but everybody loves having that type of dude that can really play any position on the field and can produce running the ball, catching the ball, whatever you need him to do. And even though he's an undersized guy, even though he wasn't the highest recruited person, he was probably still a 3 or 4 star recruit, but he's always had that one thing that they've knocked him for, whether it's his weight or his height or whatever. He's got that one thing that scouts have just knocked him for his whole career, and then he comes in and he dominates. And those type of guys don't necessarily always succeed at the NFL level, but they are absolutely the most fun to watch. Like, without a doubt, those are the most likable guys, those are the most fun to watch, and those guys are just good to have. You know, they've got that chip on their shoulder, they're dogs. It's just, to me, that type of player is so fun to watch. That is just the pinnacle of football athleticism and versatility and just all that type of stuff that you love to see. But anyways, I'm Limitless Pools. I'll see you guys next time.
It's like, nigga, put it in the blender. Hell yeah, I'm Wingstop. Jump on the chicken tender. It's like the beef with energy and water like Kimber. Hey, turning, looking like dinner. It's like I got the bag, boy or girl.